back to the Global Glory Chasers podcast. I am your host, Dorina Lazo Gilmore-Young, and I'm inviting you to join us as we go on an adventure feasting on the glory of God. This season, I've been hosting conversations with artists, chefs, authors, teachers, and others about food, books, and travel, some of my favorite topics to dish about. And so if you are interested in seeing the Imago Dei, the image of God in the people and the cultures around the world, these conversations are here to guide you and inspire you. I want to just urge you to go back because this is our last episode of the season. But if you've missed any of the episodes, these have been such fun conversations. So please go back, listen to the ones you've missed, and be sure to subscribe over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even YouTube if you prefer video. I will be having some special Advent devotionals, which will be dropping during December to conclude our season. But today, I'm excited to welcome my dear friend, Kathi Lipp. She is the Publishers Weekly bestselling author of 20 books, including Sabbath Soup, which we have featured here on the show. Also, The Accidental Homesteader is one of her books. Overwhelmed and Clutter-Free are some other books. And along with being part of the Encourage writing team, which I'm a part of with Kathi, she is also the host of the Clutter-Free Academy podcast and the Facebook group Clutter-Free for Life. So Kathi is a California girl with me. She lives on her red house mini homestead with her husband, Roger, and her 9-pound dog, Moose. And she regularly hosts her blended family of 6, as well as writers' retreats and loads of people that they love there at the homestead. So I'm really excited to have Kathi here chatting with me today. Kathi, thank you for coming. Share a little bit about the season of life that you're in.
Yeah, Dorina, thank you so much for having me on. And, you're part of the season of life I'm in because, one of my fun things is getting to do Encourage and Dayspring and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's the fun and playing, but also the day to day, you introduced, we do live on a mini homestead. Our closest real grocery store is about 45 minutes away. And so when it comes to cooking and hosting, and if you want to be hosted by us, it's a commitment. You have to make a pretty long drive to make it happen. But man, we love it when we're able to hunker down with people we love. And so I'm just writing and speaking and doing a lot online, which I'm really grateful that I get to do. When I started this whole speaking writing gig, there was really nothing online. And now I get to stay connected in lots of different ways while still living in the middle of the forest, it's about the perfect combination.
That sounds like the best of all the worlds. I love that.
Yeah. Yes. We would not be a good place for you to live with kids who needed to get to activities. The only school around here is, I'm not even joking, it's a 1-room schoolhouse with 8 students from kindergarten to 8th grade. So it would be a little bit more challenging to raise a family out here, but we're past that stage of our life. Now we're only raising a puppy. So it's a pretty sweet life.
Well, let's go back a little bit into your story. I want to know, where did you grow up? And do you feel rooted to that specific city, or is there another place that just really feels like home to you?
Yeah. So I was born in Redwood City, California, so part of the Bay Area, but everything about me is pretty much San Jose, California. I started kindergarten in San Jose. In 4th grade, we switched to where I would consider home and grew up there, did a little bit of moving around, but always came back home. One of my most adventurous years was a year living in Japan, teaching English as a second language, where I learned to, I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the food. I fell in love with everything about it, but came home, got married, raised my kids. And this is the first time I've really lived for a significant amount of time away from the Bay Area. I do miss the food and the diversity of the Bay Area. But, the major city kind of near us is Folsom or Sacramento. And so we do get to dip into it every once in a while. So that I'm grateful for that, but I do miss home, but we're creating home here.
Beautiful. Well, I'm pretty familiar with the Bay Area. My grandparents actually were in the San Jose, Fremont area, and lots of my
Uh,
family and cousins are up there. So I have visited that area a lot through my years of growing up and even as an adult. But for sure, such a contrast to where you live now. And I would
yeah.
love for our listeners to hear a little bit more about that journey. How did you and Roger decide to move to this homestead? And why is it so special to you?
Yeah, so God is so gentle. I don't know that we would have ever said, let's sell our house in San Jose and move to the mountains. Like that was not anywhere on our game of life. I had a friend who had a place in the mountains and she would let us use it whenever they were not using it. And Roger and I, we were more creative there. We were more connected. We loved being in the middle of the forest. So we started to look for kind of a one room cabin that we could get away to and Airbnb when we weren't here. Well, that went from if we could Airbnb that, maybe we could do writers retreats if we had a bigger house. And so we started to look for a bigger house. And then we found an insanely big house that we never thought about, but we thought, oh, large groups could stay here. So for about, I don't know, a year and a half, when we were in San Jose, we would Airbnb our house in the mountains. And when we were in the mountains, we would Airbnb our house in San Jose. And can I just tell you, that's an exhausting way to live. You never really feel settled because you know somebody's coming next week and you have to lock everything into your closets and all that kind of stuff. And then we just decided, could we live in the mountains? And so Roger thought, well, I can take the train to San Jose, which was about a 5 hour train ride,
Oh,
but he could stay in an Airbnb and work there. Well, just as we were making those kind of decisions, the pandemic happened and we ended up spending almost 2 years in our mountain house. And Roger said, yeah, I never want to go back. I never want to go back to the office. And so he works full time from home. I work full time from home. And sometimes we have to travel for our work, but mostly we get to hunker down here. So God, kind of just stepped us. We had little half steps to getting us to the point of where we live here full time. And I'm really grateful for it. I don't know how to say it. We're just different people here. The Bay Area is a very, very, very fast pace. Everything about it, going to the store, church, everything is a much more fast pace. And here you are forced to slow down. And we're very grateful for it.
seeing that contrast through your eyes. And
Mm.
I think it's really fascinating because I have heard a version of this story in many different
Mm.
ways of how the
Oh,
pandemic really
yeah.
pushed all of us to imagine doing something different and
Yes.
rooting ourselves in something different and really maybe even considering what is our core values. And so I'm
Mhm.
hearing that journey happening for you. And I've heard it in many
Yeah.
other contexts. I think about even for my own family, how the pandemic really challenged us to think about what does it look like to work from home. And it's so funny. My husband works upstairs still in our closet most of
My
the
goodness.
time. He has an office. He goes into it a couple of times a week. But and truth be told, we do have a large closet, but he prefers it there.
Yes.
He loves being at home and we get to cross paths for like a quick snack or lunch, and then he is accessible to help with kids. And I'm so grateful for the ways that even though it was a horrible thing happening in the world, it
Yeah.
also pushed
Yeah.
us to think about, okay, this is a core value for us to be close to home.
It's so true. I don't know that we decided to sell our house before the pandemic hit. Santa Clara was the first county in the United States to close down, and we were packing up our house as we were buying hand sanitizer. And it was so fascinating to see kind of going out of town. And then we would come back to drop something off at a kid's house and to go from that hustle to the streets being emptied. It's never going to be the same again. But to have us reconsider how we lived our lives, to reconsider the pace. And we had great tragedy because of the pandemic. We lost my
Mhm.
mom's best friend. We lost Roger's mom to COVID. There were terrible things that happened. And along there, it's true. Two things can be true at the same time. we had great tragedy, and we regained parts of our lives that we thought would have been lost forever. And we're so grateful.
Same. I can relate to that so much.
Mhm.
One of the things I've observed with you, I've been a fan, a reader, part of your audience for years before I ever got to meet you in person. And I've noticed how being rooted now in the mountains in this new place has informed your writing. And you've had a few different
Mm,
projects that have been rooted in that place. I want to talk about your most recent new book, baby, called Sabbath Soup. Tell us
yeah.
about this book and the heart behind it.
Yeah, so it's so funny that it's so many things came together in my life to do this. So one of the things that kind of happened at the end of the pandemic is I started to watch TikTok. I always thought, "Oh, this is for 14-year-olds." And come to find out, I actually really enjoy being on TikTok. And one of my favorite things to kind of videos was watching people and how they eat. And, I'm just going to be really honest here, Dorina. Feels funny to say this because as you know me, I've struggled with weight and health my entire life. And so to talk about food still feels very awkward for me because for, I don't know, 50 years of my life, I had to pretend that food was not a big deal because when you struggle with your weight and you talk about food, people can get very, very judgmental. But now I'm kind of past that. And I'll just say, I thought it was really fascinating to watch how people prepared food for their families. And one of my favorite creators is devoutly Jewish and would prepare for Sabbath. Shabbat is what they would, is what they call it. And so that was part of it. Living up here and going to town once a week only to shop, it changed the rhythm because in San Jose, I could run down to Safeway every day if I needed to. And that just was not how we lived anymore. And I got to this rhythm of really spending one morning a week cooking to kind of last us the entire week. And I thought, you don't have to live in the mountains and have a grocery store. And the grocery store we go to is actually an hour and 15 minutes away. We don't even go to our closest one. But, we go to town, we do our doctor's appointments, we run our errands, we go to Lowe's, do all of that in one fell swoop, go visit grandma with the dog, that kind of thing. And I thought there may be other people who are tired of every night at 5 o'clock saying, "What are we having for dinner?" Or relying on the same five meals, which is totally fine if that brings you joy. But maybe you wanted to try something else or trying to reclaim some of that time or energy or money that can be lost when you're cooking every night. So we got to the point where on Friday or Saturday, I was cooking. And then from Saturday night to Sunday evening, we were eating what we had cooked on Friday or Saturday. And one of the main things was soup that after church, we would sit down to a pot of soup because it's so simple, so flavorful, so magical. Because you cook it on Friday, it tastes better on Sunday. What's that? I don't understand it at all, but it's really true. And this rhythm has really worked out in our lives. And I wish I would have discovered, I was eking into it while our kids were at home, but I fully embraced it once we got up here to the mountains.
Well, and I love that through this book, you bring all of us, your readers, into your kitchen and just show us practically how to do this. And I think that's
Hmm.
the thing that makes this book unique. I think we can have these sort of theological conversations that
Yeah.
sometimes feel a little esoteric about Sabbath and simplicity and all these things, which
Hmm.
I think are important, but you also get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, and this is how it's done, and this is how to make it
Right.
realistic. And if you only, have a grocery store an hour and 15 minutes away, it's still possible, which is
Right.
that part is impressive. And that's actually not the life I live. Like I have Trader Joe's a mile away and I'm surrounded by farmers
Woohoo.
markets in the Central Valley. So I'm not doing that, but I
Yeah.
love your example because it really touches on so many different lifestyles because of that.
Yeah. Well, and even if you have access has changed how we live. And this 24/7, I can get onto Amazon at any time and order anything, and it's here the next day or the day after. And having such a variety, it's such a gift to have such a variety of stores, and an extra gift to have so many farmers markets near you. But it's also told our brains, I don't have to prep or plan because
Mm,
I can just go to the store. And I don't know about you. I have never just gone to the store, even when I lived 5 minutes away from a store, that didn't take 25, 30 minutes.
true story.
And
Yes.
and when you take those bites out of your day, we wonder why we're hustling so much.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you. I got tired of the hustle. And my body was living in a state of adrenaline so much that when it came time to rest, rest felt stressful. Like I
Mm.
didn't know what to do with that time. And so when Roger would say, "Hey, how about we watch a movie on Sunday?" I would automatically grab my laptop so I could get something done so that I wouldn't be lazy. And I I need to figure out, and I have figured it out to a much larger extent, and I am still figuring out how to rest. How to
Mm.
say it's okay to take a nap on a Sunday. It's okay to not have 7 sides on, Thanksgiving. It's okay to dial it back. And 7 sides is an underestimation, right? Roger and I were like, could we get away with 4 sides for Thanksgiving? And it felt a little sacrilege, but it also felt a little exciting. Like, can we just do the things that our family loves and not be, I'll just tell you, Dorina, a lot of my life was performative.
Mhm.
And I didn't even realize it. Like I was doing things to impress my mom, to impress my friends, to impress, you and I are both on social media with followers to impress people. I did it without even realizing it, disguising it as serving my family or serving my community. And what do we do in the dark?
Mm. Mhm.
Is 4 sides for Thanksgiving okay? Is dialing back for Christmas all right? Is doing a simple meal on Sunday after church that's just a bowl of soup? Is that because what I was doing was I was creating Sabbath for everybody in my family and not experiencing it myself because of the hustle.
Mhm.
And I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to live that way again.
That's so real. I get that too. And I think I'm like more naturally wired to chase the hustle, if I'm
Yeah,
honest. And so I've
right.
been on this similar journey for several years. I mean, honestly, since my husband, Sean, and I got married, and we're about to celebrate 9 years. But really, him
Mm.
coming into our lives, I'm a remarried widow, and Sean had regular rhythms of rest because he was an athlete. He was an Ironman triathlete. And so,
Yeah.
like, rest was non negotiable because his body needed it. And he was a single guy, so he could take it
Yeah.
and he didn't have to feel guilty about it. And so, it
Right.
was so interesting. Like when we were dating, I was like, ha ha, yeah, I got 3 little kids. That type of like lifestyle is not going to happen. But now, actually, on Sundays, it is our day of rest. And I don't think it
Mm.
always has to be Sundays, but most Sundays for
Right.
us, that's what our Sabbath looks like. And I have found too, and I want to free our listeners by saying this out loud, that sometimes we just have to reimagine it. So a
Yes.
few years ago, we would do Shabbat on Friday night because we found that that was a time we could sit down with everyone together and make a
Mhm.
little bit fancier meal, and the
Yeah.
kids would participate, and we loved that. And right now, not in that season. We have
Right.
athletes in our family. My husband and I coach track and field, so that means at least 5 or 6 months of the year, I've got to figure out how to make dinner in 15 minutes at 8 o'clock at night,
Mhm. Yeah.
or do a lot of prep ahead of time. So
Right.
now my Sunday, we do charcuterie Sunday. And, we get home from
Oh.
church and we like pull all the things out of the pantry, and I keep a lot of charcuterie stuff in our fridge. And I don't actually cook. I
Mhm.
tell everybody to make your cute salami roses and sit down and eat them together. It's not like me slaving over the meal. And oftentimes we do have soup left over in the fridge,
A
which is what I love about
and
your book.
well, and we do tend to cook. We're in a stage of life, but also if you want to like Trader Joe's is part of my meal plan.
Mhm.
Like every, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, somewhere there is Trader Joe's on the menu. And God bless them, right? I'm so grateful for that. And all the meals I'm making do double duty. Like when it was kids at home, I would roast two chickens because we had four teenagers who would eat down to the carcass. But
Right?
now, when I make soup, I'm not making soup just for that day. I'm making soup for that day. I'm taking soup to a neighbor and we're having soup on Tuesday nights. It's this, how do we make it stretch? How do we make it do double duty? Because life is too short to cook once without eating twice.
I love that. It's so practical. And I've heard you talk about that before. And I think it's very empowering, especially for busy mamas, or if you're
Mhm.
in a season of life where you don't have kids at home. How beautiful that you could plan for bringing some of it to a neighbor. I love
Oh
that.
yeah. Dorina, we have our next door neighbor. His name is Paul, and he is a volunteer firefighter. And one of the reasons we still have a house after the Caldor fire. And I had found out that he had been in the hospital with COVID right as that Caldor fire was going on because they all sleep in bunks together. And yeah. So I said, can I bring you some soup? And one of his friends said, well, it'll be the only meal he has because he lives off of Lunchables. I'm like, what?
No.
No, you're going to find this very soon, Dorina. When you've been used to cooking for 5, or in my case 6 people, it's hard to lose that muscle. Like I tend to cook for a crowd. And I said, oh friend, at least a couple of meals a week will not be Lunchables from now on. And so Roger felt very awkward at first that we were bringing him food. He goes, I think that's kind of weird. And I said, you know what? Let me just say, and it's true, we have extra. And Roger's like, oh, okay, I feel better with extra than I'm cooking all this meal for our next door neighbor. It just felt awkward to Roger because I don't know, it just did. And so I would we would bring him meals and he would be so grateful. And then eventually Roger's the one who walks him up to the front door because I'm sitting in the car with the dog on my lap. And when Roger saw Paul's gratitude for those meals, he's like, "Oh
Mm.
yeah, we can bring him food every week." And that's been for about 4 years now. Every week we show up with a little cooler that has, I don't know, 3 or 4 meals most times, and he is so grateful, and I think he's healthier because of it, and he's always he feels loved and taken care of, and that's what I want for our neighbors.
Kathy, that is so beautiful. And I really believe that that is how we can multiply the glory of God to our
It's so true.
neighbors. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
definitely pressing into the spiritual aspect of this. This is what
Mhm.
Jesus did, right?
Yeah.
He sat
Yeah.
down at the table with people, he multiplied loaves and fish, and that
Yeah.
also then became an opportunity to nourish people's souls. And I love that you
Yes.
make it practical by sharing how you do that. Tell us about some of your favorite recipes in the book that we can do
Oh,
this.
okay. I'm going to give you one that's not in the book, but I'm going to give you a really easy, free way to do it. I have a free download on Amazon. It's called Soups On. And it has one of my favorite recipes. It's the cream of chicken and wild rice soup. We made too many meal plans for the book and they said you have to take some out, but we'll put them as a free download. So if you go to Amazon and you just look for Soups On, download it for free. You'll love that recipe. And it's one of those recipes. Every ingredient you could either keep in your freezer or your pantry, except for like onions and celery. But onions and celery last a really long time. And if you're a Trader Joe's girly or a Aldi's girly, they have the mirepoix, the cut up. Yeah,
Yes.
that you can just buy that. It's wonderful and it lasts forever. So that's a great recipe. My friend Susie, who is a neighbor, which means she only lives 30 minutes away, just had surgery on Tuesday. And I said, what can I do? How can I help? She goes, I want your tomato and gin soup. And I'm like, bet I can do that. So this is a recipe that I kind of recreated from a restaurant in Arizona, the White Chocolate Cafe. It's a bacon and mushroom base to a tomato soup
Oh,
that it's Dorina, it is, yeah, and it's creamy and it's excellent. And it is just, it's love in a bowl. I don't even know how else to say it. It's one of my favorite recipes ever. So that's a wonderful one. If
And is
this is coming, that's in Sabbath Soup. Yes.
okay.
Another fun recipe that I really like is overnight French toast. So if you're having like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Easter, you're having people spend the night, make this overnight French toast the night before, even the morning before, and then you pull it out the morning of, you stick it in the oven. It is so magical. It's the most magical recipe. There are over, I think, 120 recipes in the book. And I'll just tell you, it's been out for a month now. And the scariest thing I've ever done is publish a cookbook, Dorina, because what if somebody tries a recipe and says, this is terrible, or it's too salty, or, whatever it is. I mean, we just keep getting feedback like, my husband adored this, or my daughter says she wants this for her birthday. So right now I'm riding high. I'm sure there will be a recipe that comes up that somebody says, but so far we haven't hit it. The soup, there are 24 soup recipes in there. And these are my absolute favorites. And many of them are like, they're dead simple. They're the simplest recipes. I use a lot of ingredients that, are frozen because we just don't have time. I don't want you to feel like everything has to be done from scratch. Scratch can be really fun and it can be really beautiful, but really the book is about repurposing leftovers and trying new things and just getting a little out of your comfort zone. And one more soup recipe, the white bean chicken chili recipe is really good. I will tell you, we talk about rotel in there. Have you had rotel before? This was new to me like
Yes.
5 years ago. Okay. So if you guys don't know, it's basically canned tomatoes with chilies. I like a mild rotel. Roger likes a spicier rotel. You just have to figure out what's going to work for you. But that rotel in that recipe, and then also in my queso, this is the other thing that Susie asked for. Everybody in her family except for her is lactose intolerant. So every time I go over, I bring her queso and it makes her so happy. I dropped off food at her house yesterday. And before we got home, I had a text that I've already eaten part of the rotel. Thank you so, so, so much.
Love it. Yes. If I could choose queso or basically nachos as a food group, I definitely would. My family knows that.
Yes.
I'm lactose intolerant, but I will take the pill.
No,
I will take the
you'll
pill.
take the pill. That's true love, baby. That is true love.
Love me some cheese. Lori. Well, I want to ask you as we think about Thanksgiving, which is just
Yeah.
around the corner. What are
Mm-hmm.
you looking forward to? This is kind of the Super Bowl of food holidays. What do you look forward to when you
Yeah.
think about Thanksgiving?
So I love that my husband does the turkey and we spatchcock our turkey.
Yes.
And yeah, so this will be the first year where we're going to Whole Foods. This is the only thing we spend a lot of money on for Thanksgiving. And we're going to buy our turkey there and ask them to spatchcock it because the butcher will do that, which I didn't know. So we're doing that. And he's doing it on on our, it's not our barbecue, our smoker. So I really look forward to that. I am a stuffing purist.
Okay.
Stovetop has perfected stuffing. There's no reason for anybody ever to make another kind of stuffing. Get away with your oysters and cranberry. No, thank you. No, thank you. The one thing I will do to add to it is I will saute some onions to put in there, and that makes me super happy. And I'll also keep some turkey broth to put, if it starts to dry out, turkey broth will magically revive any of your dishes. And so I love that. And I love a good mashed potato. It's a whole food group. Now, my husband's family ate a lot of Amish food. And so they did something called potatoes and noodles, which, Dorina, how it was explained to me was mashed potatoes with noodles on it. And I said, is there more to that? And they said, no, it's just mashed potatoes and noodles. So I made that the first Thanksgiving we were together. And his kids are like, where's the gravy? And I'm like, nobody talked about gravy. So now I know,
Gravy
we
is key.
Gravy is key. I was able to make it on the spot because I could look it up. But it's wide egg noodles that you put on top of mashed potatoes, and then there's a gravy that goes on top of it. So I'm looking forward to all of that.
Okay, I just learned two important new things from you. First of all, Whole
Do tell
Foods
me.
can spatchcock the turkey. My brother and
Right?
brother-in-law always do that. It always feels like this like easy process. So
It's
love that
so
the
hard
butcher would
too.
do it.
Yes. They have the big saw. Let the
Yeah.
person with the big saw spatchcock for you.
Oh, so smart. I love it. And I've never heard of
Mhm.
noodles on top of mashed potatoes, but I'm pretty sure noodles and mashed potatoes are my kids' favorite food groups. So I'm going to have to look that one up.
Okay, I'll send you the recipe that I finally got from Roger's side of the family.
Okay, I love it.
Okay.
Well, I have to ask you, just as kind of fun, I love to give recommendations to our
Yeah.
readers and listeners. And we always have our Global Glory Chasers recommendations. What are
Yeah.
some of your favorite items that you have in your kitchen? Are there any fun gadgets
Okay.
or hacks that you have?
Yes. Okay. So my first one, it's a product called Kitchen Mama, and it is a can opener that you just set on top of the can, push a button, and it goes vrrr all the way around. And it gives you one of those, it's like a clean cut for
Okay.
your can.
Yeah.
So, Dorina, you are not in this stage of life, but as your body starts to like show the wear and tear, like I will just say, as a lefty, I am very grateful for an ambidextrous can opener. And as somebody who has gone to PT for my wrist, to be able, I have given this can opener to so many people and they all love it.
Okay.
And it was
Sounds
very funny. At Sam's Club, I accidentally bought a giant, like, gallon thing of crushed tomatoes. I didn't realize. I thought it was like 6 little cans. It was one giant can. And to watch that can opener go around that, it it was you say glory to a lot of things. Glory. It was wonderful. So,
brilliant. Love it.
and I don't want an electric can opener because I want a can opener that can be used when, the power goes out, which happens a lot here. And so this battery operated one is the bomb. So that's I'll send you the link for that. The other two, a couple other things I'm going to recommend are not cheap, but I use them multiple times a day. So one of them, it's called the Ninja Foodie Flip. It's an air fryer, but here's the beautiful thing. It's like 7 things. It's a pizza oven, it's an air fryer, it's everything. And it flips up on your counter so it barely takes up any room. So if you're in a smaller kitchen, this is worth the investment and it cooks things perfectly. It's your toaster. You can get rid of so many things. Like I always say that the most precious real estate in my house is my kitchen counter.
Mhm.
And so I keep everything off of it. But the 2 things I keep on it, are my stand mixer and this. And I use this like 50 times more than my stand mixer. The stand mixer feels like I'll die if I move it and drop it, so it stays. It's staying there out of fear. And then the last thing I'll say is it's a slow cooker, but it's also, apparently I'm a Ninja girl. Everything from Ninja, I love their product lines. But this is, you can saute in this, you can slow cook in this, you can proof bread in this. It has like 70 different functions. And so I'll send you the link for that. I love it so much. I use this slow cooker probably 3 times a week. It's the ultimate one pot. I love it.
That sounds like my Instant Pot. I am married to my
Eh,
Instant Pot and I use that thing
yes.
probably every day. And
Yeah.
I think the one pot thing has definitely revolutionized the way that I cook, especially during track and field season when I'm coaching and then I have to come up with dinner quickly.
Amen, sister. To have something like that, and if I need to, it's like an extra stove in
Mhm.
my house, right? If I'm making the mac and cheese and uh, which is, by the way, another bomb recipe from Sabbath Soup, and I need to, boil the broccoli for something else I'm doing, I can just boil the noodles over there. It's so great. I love it so much. It's like extending your kitchen, and the Instant Pot too. But I knew somebody had already recommended the Instant Pot. You wouldn't
Okay,
go
I'm
very
putting
far
these
without
on
it.
my wish list. I'm so excited. Yes, I definitely think that these are great recommendations for Thanksgiving, but we've got Christmas around the corner. So these are good ones that we can put on the foodie Christmas list. Thank you for those recommendations. I am going to land
Yes,
us here, even though I could talk to you about food and goodness for the rest of the day.
absolutely.
How do you experience the glory of God through cooking and eating?
There is so much in the New Testament about feeding ourselves and feeding others. God cared deeply about this. Jesus cared deeply about feeding people. And I know, you and I have both been single moms. And I remember a time when it was pretty tough to feed my kids. And I think about how people reached out to me, how people took care of me, how one time somebody from church just wanted to treat my kids to go to In-N-Out Burger, and I said, I'll just have water. Cause I knew, this was not a rich person, but they just wanted my kids to have something special. And she leaned over and she grabbed my hands and she said, "It would give me so much joy if
Oh,
you enjoyed yourself."
mm.
Okay, Dorina, I'm sorry. I haven't told that story in so long because I can't tell it without, like, I'm not a tearer upper, but to see people be fed, let me say it this way. I've never been fed without feeling loved. I have a good friend who recently lost her baby through pregnancy. And I had never heard of this concept before, but grief groceries. A bunch of our friends got together and we went to Trader Joe's, and we didn't buy the broccoli. Let me just put it that way. We bought the frozen pizzas. We bought the chocolate covered oranges. We bought the things. And every time I see her, she brings those grief groceries up and how much they meant to her. And you can't feed people without loving people, whether it's through a food bank, in their homes, having them to your homes, paying for a kid's school lunch. You can't feed people and continue to have your preconceived notions about who they are. All of that fades away, and you just love people when you feed them, and you feel love when you are being fed. And I think that's my favorite thing about food. It really is.
And sister, you are preaching my heart. Thank you so much, Kathi, for being here on the podcast today. And we are cheering you on. Friends, go buy Sabbath Soup. You will be inspired, not just by her practical tips, but also by these recipes. And Kathi, how can people find you online?
Well, first of all, just let me say thank you for holding this space where we can talk about these things that some people don't value, but enough of us do. We know you've created a secret club here, Dorina, and I love it. If you go to sabbathsoup.com, you can get a bunch of fun stuff. And I'm Kathi with an I, Lipp, everywhere on socials, and I would love to connect with you.
We will definitely put those links in the show notes. Blessings to you, my friend. What a joy to just sit at the table with you today.
Mwah! Love you, my friend.
Hey, friends. So, if you're like me, your mouth is probably watering now after that conversation I had with Kathi. I need to really stop recording these before I eat my lunch. But that was such a lovely conversation with my friend. I hope you will check out her book, Sabbath Soup. I actually did share about that book a couple of episodes ago and read a little introduction. So, if you want to get a sneak peek, you can definitely check that out. She shared 3 recommendations, and those are our Global Glory Chasers recommendations for this episode. I will definitely put those in the show notes so you can check them out. Maybe you can consider purchasing those for a foodie in your life who you need to get a Christmas gift for. I love how Kathi is so practical, but also the heart of feeding people comes through when she talks. Today, I also would like to feature one of my favorite cookbooks. This is called Unwind, and this is actually a devotional cookbook for the harried and hungry, and it is by Artie Sakara. She is one of my favorites. I don't know if you remember Artie from years ago, but she was on the Food Network Star, And she won season 6 of the Food Network Star with her trademark combination of an infectious cackle and a unique signature food style. And now she has made this devotional cookbook, which is just beautiful. I've gotten to work with RT on the Dayspring and Encourage Writers team. Kathi also has been a part of that team as well. But this is a beautiful book for 2 reasons. First of all, she has some really yummy, unique recipes. Her background is Indian, but she incorporates foods from all over the world and a really interesting combinations, which is what I love and why she probably won the Food Network Star. But also, Artie is a beautiful writer. And so this is a book that you could use as your personal devotional and be inspired by the writing and the spiritual mentoring that she has for you. But then you could also bring the book into your kitchen and make the cookies or the stews or whatever other recipe looks appealing to you that is from the book. So again, a great gift to give for Christmas. I am going to share with you the introduction today to this book, Unwind. Here's what RT writes. She says, most days, this is me at 4:30 p.m. Maybe you're familiar. It's that moment that feels like a finish line after a full day of work, responsibilities, conflict, and just life. It feels like a finish line, but in reality, it's just a tease. The day isn't over. Nah. Now I must muster up the remains of my strength and imagination to traverse the final hurdle, dinner. You, I hear you cry, you cook for a living? How can making dinner be so hard for you? For some, cooking is an outlet, a time for jazz and a glass of wine while a pot of pasta bubbles away merrily. I love that for them. But over the past few years, as the joy of cooking has become my daily grind too, it has begun to feel like salt in the wound for me, the final straw after a day of so many straws. I look to no one. I look to one culinary guru after another, seeking simpler recipes, meal prepping strategies, or one-pot dinners. But nothing sticks. And not only is my family left with the same plate of hot dogs, broccoli, and sweet potato tots that I pulled together the week before, but probably something worse. An RT with shoulders slumped over in defeat and sadness. And then I met Viba. Viba owns a popular Indian grocery restaurant chain. I always addressed her as Auntie, as Indian culture celebrates the fact that in some ways we're all family. One day, I peeked into her restaurant kitchen and noticed that none of her cooks were Indian, and yet her food was full of all of the hallmarks of an authentic Indian meal. Well, friends, I'm going to stop reading there. I hope that I have tempted you just a little bit with this opening essay from RT. This is a gorgeous book that I think would make a great addition to your cookbook collection. I'm biased because this is one of my faves. I also want to show you kind of a bonus recommendation that goes along with this, which this one was recently released by RT. It's called Every Bite a Blessing. And this is actually a meal planning notebook. So I was so delighted to see this on the Dayspring website or catalog. And inside, it includes these places where you can write down grocery shopping lists. You can take an inventory on what's in your pantry. And there are spaces for weekly meal planning. Now, meal planning is one of my favorite things. I know for some people, it is a huge chore. If you land in either one of those camps, this notebook would be a great addition. And I love that I could just keep this on my kitchen counter over by my toaster oven. And each week I write what our dinner plans are. And that way my kids, even my parents who are living with us right now, anyone can just look at the notebook and they can see what's coming. They can help me prep if they get home before I do. And it's beautiful. It's fun. So I'm going to link both of those in our show notes today. I hope you will check them out. Friends, thank you for joining us for season 5, episode 12 of the Global Glory Chasers podcast, which has been made possible and ad-free by generous supporters through my Substack. So you can hop over to Substack and sign up for my free weekly Glorygram, or you can choose to become a paid subscriber, and that helps to support the podcast. So go over to DorinaGlorygram.substack.com or you can head over to my website, DorinaGilmore.com, for more details. This is actually the conclusion, the last feast of season 5, where we talked about all things food with Kathi. I do want to let you know that paid subscribers will get a bonus 4-part Advent series, 4 episodes, where I invite all of you into the Feast of Advent. And we get to contemplate this idea of seeing God move and his glory. I'm releasing that in December, so don't miss out on signing up. You can sign up for the month for less than the price of a latte. And I would love to keep chasing God's glory together with you. Thanks for being a part of our audience. God go with you.